great year. Plato used the term perfect year to describe the return of the planets and the diurnal rotation of the fixed stars to their original positions, a phenomenon associated with the precession of the equinoxes. As the Earth rotates on its own axis, such that the Sun rises over time in different constellations, resulting in a great year, which scientific astronomy defines as the period of one complete cycle of the equinoxes around the circle of the zodiac, or about 25,800 years. The Sun thus rises during the spring equinox in a different constellation approximately every 2,000 years, such that we are perceived to be currently in the age of Pisces, and on the verge or having already entered the age of Aquarius. However, there is supposedly no evidence Plato had any knowledge of axial precession. The cycle which Plato describes is one of planetary and astral conjunction, which can be postulated without any awareness of axial precession. Instead, the discovery of the phenomenon is attributed to Hipparchus c. 120 BC, roughly 200 years after Plato's death. However, in the 20th century, additional evidence from Greek and Babylonian sources now support that Kidinu or Kidinas, of the 4th century BC, known to the Greeks as Sidenas, a Chaldean astronomer who was head of the astronomical school in Sippa, appears to have discovered the phenomenon before Hipparchus. 67.
In the Timaeus, Plato described a conflagration of the world by fire which connected the myth of the chariot of Phaethon with the great year.
According to the Greek version of the myth, Helios reluctantly grants permission to his son Phaethon to drive the chariot of the sun across the sky. Being unable to guide the sun's chariot, Phaethon scorches a part of the earth. According to Plato, when Solon inquired of it among the Egyptians, they explained to him that the myth actually refers to the fact that there is at long intervals a variation in the course of the heavenly bodies and a consequent widespread destruction by fire of things on the earth. 68. Recalling the ascent of Mithras to heaven in a chariot, in the Phaedrus, Plato offers an analogy of the soul, comparing it again to a chariot drawn by two horses, a myth which held particular importance for later philosophers and mystics, interpreted along with Timaeus as an account of the celestial ascent of the soul and its subsequent fall.
In the Phaedrus, Plato describes the soul's ascent to the border of heaven, where Zeus, holding the reins of a winged chariot, leads the way in heaven, ordering all and taking care of all.
Presumably referring to the 12 constellations, Zeus is followed by the array of gods and demigods. Marshaled in 11 bands, Hestia alone abides at home in the house of heaven, of the rest they who are reckoned among the princely 12 march in their appointed order. Plato then puts forth the image of the soul, imparted with wings under the influence of divine love, which expresses and experiences this love according to the astrological nature of the god, or constellation, it followed in heaven.
Thus, for example, the attendants of Aries, the god of war, and the planet Mars, if they fancy that they have been at all wronged, are ready to kill and put an end to themselves and the beloved. 69.
Dio Chrysostom recorded a hymn sung by the Magi of Asia Minor on account of its resemblance to the Stoic theory of conflagrations. In the hymn, which Dio claimed was sung by Zoroaster and the children of the Magi who learned it from him, 70, Zeus is portrayed as the perfect and original driver of the most perfect chariot, drawn by 4 horses representing the 4 elements. The hymn ends at the moment that the divine fire, having absorbed all the substance of the universe, prepared for a new creation. While Greek philosophies and Greek sciences became universal throughout the Middle East, many teachers were not themselves Greek, and much of the philosophy and science was not Greek in origin or inspiration. Greek philosophy at this time was divided into fairly definite schools, of which the most important were the Cynics, Skeptics, Epicureans and the Stoics. Of these, the most influential was that of the Stoics, which takes its name from the place where its founder Zeno, c. 334 c. 262 BC would lecture. The Stoa Poikile, painted porch, a colonnade decorated with mythic and historical battle scenes, on the north side of the Agora in Athens. Zeno from Citium, principal Phoenician city in Cyprus, and the son of a Phoenician merchant. A. H. Armstrong commented that the Stoics accepted with enthusiasm the horrible Eastern superstition of astrology, along with all forms of divination, as perfectly corresponding to their view of the cosmos. 71. The Stoics, who encouraged all forms of divination, were promoters of astrology. All events were thought to be causally related to one another, and therefore anything that happens must in theory be a sign of some future effect. All coming events are theoretically predictable, and astrology and divination were appealed to as evidence for the validity of the causal continuum. Unless signs of what will happen are available in natural phenomena, the Stoic aim to live in accordance with natural law would be considered to have no bearing. The Stoics argued that the gods could not be interested in human welfare unless they gave signs of future events, which can be interpreted by humans. If the forecasts of diviners and astrologers turn out to be false, the fault lies with the forecasters and not with the dreams, meteorological phenomena, flights of birds, entrails, and other evidence from which the future can be foretold. 72. The heretical Magi, according to Bides and Cumont, based on an apocryphal work titled The Apocalypse of Hystaspes, taught that the life of the world was divided into 7 millennia, each under a planet and bearing the name of an associated metal. For 6 millennia, the god of good and the spirit of evil fought over the earth, until the evil spirit established his dominion and spread calamities everywhere. Zeus, or Ahura Mazda, decided to send Apollo, named Mithras, to kill the wicked with a torrent of fire, resurrect the dead, and establish a reign of justice and felicity. The 7th millennium, that of the Sun, would assure a prosperous age of gold, at the end of which the sun power ended, and all the domination of the planets. The 8th millennium brought about a general conflagration, in which fire took in and resolved the other 3 elements, when Earth was renovated and all corruptibility eradicated. 73. The Stoics believed that the divine fire, or God, generated the universe, and at the end of the great year took it back into itself through a great conflagration. Eventually, the fire would die down to air, and finally to a watery condition in which the seed for the next cycle would be. This cycle repeats itself eternally. The idea of recurring conflagrations was attributed by Nigidius Figulus, prominent Roman philosopher and astrologer of the 1st century BC, to the Magi, 74, and the notion that the world would be destroyed by fire is found in the Bundahishn. 75. It may have been from the Magicians that Heraclitus learned the same doctrine. Also, in the Republic, Plato made use of the Babylonian Sar, where it appears as the numerical equivalent of the period between global catastrophes outlined in the Timaeus, when the stars and 7 planets are aligned with each other exactly as they were at the creation. This, believes Nicholas Campion, is the clearest evidence of his connections with Babylonian historical cosmology. 76. As Anthony Long has indicated, the Stoics were probably influenced by the doctrine of Berosus, who, interpreting the prophecies of Bel, attributed these disasters to the movement of the planets, and claimed to be able to determine the date of the conflagration and the Great Flood. 77. Berosus maintained that the Earth will burn whenever all the planets converge in Cancer, and are arranged in such a manner as to be aligned in a straight line, and that there will be a further great flood, when the planets converge in the same manner in Capricorn. Since the change to summer occurs under the sign of Cancer, and the change to winter under Capricorn. 78.